Cheese. And welcome back to That's Some Cheese, part of the Vendetta Sports Podcast Network. Today is Friday, April 12th. On the line, special guest, Jacob McCormick. Jacob, how are we doing today?
Great, man. The NBA playoffs are here. You know, I know that there's going to be set starting lineups. We're not going to see G Leaguers out here. I am pumped that we're actually going to get some competitive basketball, which was tough to come by in the last couple of weeks.
The 82-game grind is finally over. I can't wait for the playoffs to start. The lottery this year is going to be fantastic.
Can't wait.
But first, let me open up with those cruds at Virginia. They found a way to win the title. And the first question I wanted to ask here is, that first-round loss last year to UMBC, all of the sudden seems like a positive to me. Because now you can't talk about the national championship without bringing up the first-round loss. And now that first-round loss feels like just part of the story. Feels like a feel-good story. And now you just remember Virginia. Before, if they don't lose in the first round, 20 years from now, probably don't remember that team. Now, you remember them forever.
Right. No, I totally agree with you. What better way to follow up the most embarrassing loss in, almost maybe in, tournament history, you would probably still say that, even though they were without DeAndre Hunter, but still probably the most embarrassing loss, still should have won the game, to come back and just, three down to the wire games in a row, Sweet 16, Elite Eight, and then, Elite Eight, and then two Final Four games, just awesome games and storybook ending. They'll make a documentary about this. Not a lot of people will watch it because, why would you? It's not that captivating. But they'll make a documentary about it. A lot of ACC fans will watch it. That's about it. But to me, honestly, it's great. I love watching Virginia. I think they're a great basketball team. I love Tony Bennett. And even though they don't have NBA athletes all over the court, I think it's fun to watch them in the tournament, to watch those teams figure out ways to win. I was really happy for them.
I will say, I thought the game was going to be incredibly boring going in. It was actually a really good game.
It was.
We're putting up points left and right. It was a really good game.
I knew there would be some valleys, right? I knew there would be some valleys in that game where there was some real rough shooting or some really tough, if you're a defensive nerd, maybe you'd get a kick out of it. But there's going to be some tough moments. But then I was confident that it would end really exciting. It would be a really exciting ending. And it was. I kind of wish overtime would have been a little bit different. But, that's what happened. They were the better team. And they really, showed in overtime that they could get baskets. Or DeAndre Hunter just really stepped up in the second half in OT. I don't want to get too excited off one game, but I was a little worried off of the first few games of the tournament on his draft prospects just because he looked like non-existent in a lot of areas. So it was good to see that from him.
All right, let's get right into the NBA playoffs. Mm-hmm. We'll start in the Eastern Conference. First, we got the 1 seed Milwaukee Bucks, the 8 seed Detroit Pistons. The Bucks swept the season series. Jacob, I got to be honest with you. I just have no interest in watching this one. It's no interest. I'd rather watch two squirrels having sex in the backyard or something. Whoa. I really have no interest in watching this one. What's your takeaway for the Bucks and Pistons series?
That does sound more exciting than this series, but there's not really much to talk about here. I do like Detroit a little bit. I've become more of a Blake Griffin fan over the last few years. I think it's cool that Andre Drummond just decides to get every rebound possible. Don't like Reggie Jackson, but they have a couple of decent players, and they're probably a little bit better than the 8th seed, but they're just so inconsistent, right? And, Griffin got banged up a couple days ago. If Griffin's not 110%, they probably don't win a game, honestly. They may not win a game. They may not have won a game anyway, but I really think this is a start-to-finish sweep.
The Detroit Pistons, the worst road record of any playoff team in the playoffs. That just tells you they have no shot. You can't win on the road as an 8 seed. You got no shot.
Yeah.
I don't see any reason why anyone should watch this series. But one thing we can talk about, the Blake Griffin trade. Now, he's played better than I thought he would coming over. He's been healthy. He's actually been making some shots, scoring points. But is it fair to call this trade a failure from the Pistons' perspective? Because when you're the 8 seed, and when they traded for him last year, they didn't make the playoffs. And they're really, I don't even know if you call them stuck in the middle, because the bottom of the Eastern Conference is just really, really bad. And they could have easily missed the playoffs this year. Is it fair to call that Blake Griffin trade a failure?
I think it is fair. I was a little bit back and forth on it. I understand trying to make a move for a star. You know, he was on a contract that, you know, nobody really was a fan of. They did, you know, now that we've seen kind of Tobias Harris has just always been slept on. Now that we've seen him kind of flourish, you know, he's going to get probably a close to a max deal this coming summer. You know, they gave up the pick that turned into was it Shai Gilgeous-Alexander? Or one of those picks. It was back to back. So it was a pretty, you know, in a rookie class that is, you know, shown to be very deep. You know, there's a lot, you know, first and second team all rookie are, you know, it's a lot of good players on there. A lot of players you'd like to have, you know, and so I think you're right. It's probably a failure of a trade for Detroit, just because, you know, if they come in as the 5 or the 6 seed this year, you know, make some noise, maybe they, you know, you saw a little bit more improvement from some of their other role players, or maybe Luke Kennard or somebody like that, then you could probably say that it was worth it, but not as the 8 seed.
Let's move to the next playoff series.
Mm-hmm.
The 4 seed Boston Celtics, the 5 seed Indiana Pacers. Victor Oladipo out for the season. He's been out for a long time. Now Marcus Smart looks like he's definitely going to be out for this series. Injury is going to play a factor in this first round series. What are your initial takeaways here?
My initial takeaways is that I put a little bit of money on Indiana plus 355 to win the series this morning.
Whoa.
Yeah, so that's I mean, now if you were to ask me to sit here and pick game by game, I'd probably take the Celtics, but with the Marcus Smart injury, with the troubles they've had, I think Indiana was going to be a bothersome team anyway, and I think this Celtics team is the team that is the perfect team to get, you know, frazzled by an annoying team. So, you know, against teams like the Orlando Magic, the Celtics were like 0-3 or 0-4 this year. Like, you know, those are the types of things that, like, this Orlando's an annoying team. You know, I feel like Indiana is just a better version of that. And, you know, they have role players. They have a really good coach. And, you know, they were in the postseason last year. They took LeBron to 7 games, you know.
The Celtics did close the season 6 of their last 8. They won, and 2 of those games were against the Pacers. My biggest concern about this series is Brad Stevens has used Marcus Smart as the primary defender against Bojan Bogdanovic, and that's really the only offense they have. If he can get a good game scoring-wise, because Indiana's a team that doesn't have a lot of offense, if he can put up points and they can play that good defense, then they can be annoying. Can Jaylen Brown fill in those Marcus Smart minutes?
I like Jaylen Brown. I don't think he's going to be able to fill the role that they needed Marcus Smart to play. I think Jaylen's going to provide a little bit more scoring, and he's a good defender. But I don't think that you're going to see the play in, play out, the consistent level of defense and the commitment to it. Because, like you said, Marcus Smart's not necessarily concerned ever about his offense. He hoists up some shots sometimes, but generally he's out there to kind of calm everybody and to be the defensive anchor, you know, him and Al Horford. So I think you're going to see I don't think Jalen's going to be able to live up to it, but I think he's going to have a pretty good series. I just don't know if he's going to provide what they need, right? Like he could go out there and average 17 points a game, but you know, is that taken away from somebody else? Is that causing the defense to be at a disadvantage when he's out there, you know, even though he's scoring, like things like that?
I think the Celtics will win in 5 or 6 games, but you think it's going to be closer, apparently, with your bet. I would say it's a good 6-7 game series. Okay.
Probably a 7-game series without a doubt.
What is there anything that you're looking at that's saying, well, maybe Other than the fact that the Marcus Smart injury, what else do you think can give Indiana a boost that can make this competitive?
I think Sabonis off the bench is going to be really key. The Celtics have notoriously over the past few seasons been, one of the lower rebounding teams.
Don't even get me started.
Right. And I mean, I don't have the stats in front of me, but they're not known for their rebounding. And they have a decent bench unit, but they've been cycling in these backup big men all season. Aaron Baines plays maybe, he's way more important to this team than maybe he should be, but still he's a good player. They've got Robert Williams, they've got Daniel Tice. But to me, Sabonis is a six-man of the year candidate. He's a starter-level player. He's a better player top to bottom in his game than, any of those big men I just listed for Boston. And I think he's really going to cause a problem. And, he's a walking double-double. And, if those bench units can't hold their own against Indiana, then, the starters to me, they'll be locked in enough to where if the bench can show up, then they'll be all right. You got players like Tyreke Evans who, he hasn't played this season like he did with Memphis last year, but who knows, in a slowed down playoff game, maybe he comes alive, or maybe there's nobody on that second unit that can guard him. If you're moving Jaylen Brown into that starting lineup, who's guarding Tyreke Evans on the second unit? Is it Rozier? Then is Aaron Holiday or Corey Joseph taking advantage of whoever is guarding them in the point guard position? So I think that's something to watch. That second unit for Indiana.
All right, let's move on to the next series. We have the 3 seed Philadelphia 76ers, the 6 seed Brooklyn Nets. These two teams 2-2 on the season series. But Joel Embiid is questionable heading into this weekend. Are we ripe for a little bit of an upset maybe, or is Philadelphia going to blow by Brooklyn with no problem?
This one, to me, a friend asked me this the other day when the matchup was set. And I don't want to be a contrarian, but I think Philadelphia is going to probably get this in probably five games. I think it's going to be a lot less competitive than people think, unless, of course, Embiid can't play. But I think that's more of just some gamesmanship. And, he is questionable, but I think he's going to go out and, an 85 to 90% Joel Embiid is going to really, take care of things, take care of business in this series. I love Brooklyn. I love what they've done. I love their coach. I'm a big D'Angelo Russell fan. Been a huge fan ever since he was in college. Just loved watching the guy. Thought his vision was great. I just love that. His lefty, with the finishing at the rim, his mid-range game. But I just don't think that they're going to have enough kind of wing depth and talent. You've got Jared Dudley playing big minutes. You've got Karooks playing more. Like, you've got guys that aren't really proven in the league. I mean, Dudley proven, but, on the last leg of his career. So I think you're going to see a lot of these guys Philadelphia has legitimately 4 all-star level players. And I think you're going to see some of those guys pick up the slack, and they're going to stagger them in different ways to where maybe Jimmy Butler is running with the second unit more often in some of these games to pick up some slack.
I will say I think Philadelphia probably wins the season or the series pretty easily, but the chemistry issues I feel like should be a concern. Tobias Harris, Jimmy Butler, Embiid constantly on and off the floor. These guys haven't played together a whole lot. Not a lot of minutes together playing. Like, is there any concern that they get deep into these series and these guys don't have any chemistry? They haven't played together long enough.
That's a very good point to bring up. I mean, they haven't necessarily seemed to all click very often since they came together, and they're not necessarily your prototypical starting lineup. I mean, you've got tons of length, tons of everybody's a decent. I mean, well, not everybody. I don't know what I'm saying. Ben Simmons, but Tobias Harris is a really good shooter. Embiid's shown that he can stretch it. Jimmy can used to be pretty solid. It's been weird. It's been you could just almost like you want to squirm in your chair a little bit sometimes when you've watched them or seen some box scores as well. So, going back to what we talked about a couple of weeks ago, I really wish that they could have held on to Landry Shamet, because I really feel like he would have been a difference maker in the playoffs, just being another player off the bench to come in and provide some offense, or at least some, somebody you had to pay attention to. But like I said, still think that, maybe it goes to 6, but Brooklyn wins a game or 2 at home. But I really think Philadelphia kind of shows their power here. And I don't think those chemistry issues are going to come into play until the second round, really.
Philadelphia should win pretty easily, but Brooklyn definitely playing with house money.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think a lot of people saw them making the playoffs this year.
Yeah, and the 6th seed, I mean, that's nothing to sneeze at. I know 6, 7, 8 is kind of bumped right up together there, but still, I mean, that's something to write home about. Like, that is an achievement for this team. So you're right. They're playing with house money. They're going to come in ready to just knock some heads and ready to take some shots at these guys. So it'll be a fun series. That'll be one of the ones I'll be watching.
Last first round series of the East, we have the 2 seed Toronto Raptors, 7 seed Orlando Magic. I don't have a whole lot here. Another boring first round matchup, but we do have Terrence Ross revenge series.
Yes,
he was part of that Victor Oladipo trade that sent Oladipo to Oklahoma City, and then Oladipo eventually found his way in the Pacers for Paul George. Can Orlando put up a little bit of a fight here, or is this pretty Toronto 4-game sweep? See ya.
I want to say it's a Toronto 4-game sweep and see ya. I really think Toronto is different than they have been in the past few seasons, and I think that they're going to be, 4 games in a row, going to run out a consistent starting lineup they haven't been able to do all season. Whether they did it on purpose, they've been doing this intentionally all season, but they're going to really be out there all together. They've seemed to be clicking pretty well when they are. I like Orlando. I'm glad. I'm so happy they're in the playoffs. I'm so glad that it wasn't the Raptors, the Hornets or the Heat. Much rather see a new face in there. Happy that Orlando. They got some fun players: Terrence Ross, Aaron Gordon, Vucevic. A few fun guys to watch. I like Jonathan Isaac. But if you really put me down to it, I would probably say Orlando's played really well at home and in the second half of the season really, really well. So I'd probably say a 5-game series just because they're going to get one back in Orlando. That place will probably be packed out. But it'll be on NBA TV, so will anybody see it? I don't know.
I think the truth of the matter is the Eastern Conference, or I should say the bottom of the Eastern Conference, is just so putrid compared to the bottom of the Western Conference. Mm-hmm. Like, even these bottom of the Western Conference teams would give the top of the East a real shot.
Yeah.
These bottom of the East teams just suck.
Yeah, well, I mean, you look at like the teams like Memphis and Dallas and New Orleans. I mean, they're like, 32, 33, 34 wins? I mean, you're getting, Detroit in here at, I can't pull them up, but they're barely over 40. Yeah, they're barely over 40. So these teams aren't very, the East look to be a little bit stronger, and they are. Up top, star power, stronger than they have been in the past. But after those first 4 or 5 teams, especially since Oladipo's out, you're not. It's not. They're just cakewalks. So
okay, and that will bring us to the Western Conference. But first, thank you for listening to That's Some Cheese, part of the Vendetta Sports Podcast Network. Make sure to visit the website, vendettasportsmedia.com. Again, that is vendettamedia.com. Make sure to go to the YouTube channel, Vendetta Media. Subscribe to the page for instant updates. We'll have video content on these playoff series, as you'll probably be watching already. And also give Jacob McCormick a follow on Twitter at Jacob McCormick _. All right, getting to the Western Conference now. Mm-hmm. We have the 1 seed Golden State Warriors against the 8 seed Los Angeles Clippers. The Warriors are 3-1 against the Clippers in the regular season. They are a 12.5-point favorite in game 1, and I think that tells you everything you need to know. 12.5 points in one game is outrageous. Is this even competitive?
I mean, I was really excited to see the Clippers matchup. I don't know. I mean, they lost a few games here at the end of the season. Some people were saying, were they trying to jockey for position? Sometimes when you get too cute, you end up, in a really bad spot. And if I were them, I don't know if they were trying to, but I wouldn't have wanted to play the Warriors in the first round. I thought they could have given the Nuggets or even the Blazers a really good series. If the Steph Curry injury becomes something to really be concerned about, then I think you may see them take a game or two, that at the ceiling, at the best, case scenario. But I still think even a Steph Curry-less Warriors would win this series in probably in less than 7 games.
The Warriors have won 16 of 18 against the Clippers. Not a good sign for LA. But let me just argue for the Clippers. Why not? Warriors are first in three-point percentage. Probably saw that coming. But I bet you didn't see the Clippers are second in the NBA in three-point percentage.
Mm-hmm.
If Patrick Beverley can be a pest to Steph Curry, Lou Williams and Montrezl Harrell off the bench, can they make up some points? Because the Warriors bench, not exactly the best unit in the NBA. Maybe they steal a couple games than they should.
Yeah, no, and it's very important in this series for Steve Kerr to stagger the Curry, Thompson, and Durant correctly because of the bench unit in the Clippers and how they come out there with Lou Williams and Montrezl Harrell, and they're going to really be running up the court and getting easy buckets and getting to the free throw line, and obviously like open shots with players like Shamet and whatnot. But if Curry is not healthy and if Curry's not playing, his full minute slot that he would normally be playing, it is something to be watching out for because the second, it's going to be tough to stagger just the 2 players, even though they're 2 amazing players in Thompson and Durant. And maybe Boogie comes, shows out. Maybe that happens. I don't see it really being that much of a factor, but, they do have to be careful to not let this the first 1 or 2 games in Oracle get away from them with that bench unit. Because I could see that being one of the storylines where the game 1 or game 2, the Clippers just hit them in the mouth from the tip and then just never let off the gas with that second unit. But I still would predict probably Golden State to win 3 in a row after that, or 4 in a row after that. So
that'll bring us to the next series in the West. 4 seed Houston Rockets, 5 seed Utah Jazz. They split the season series 2-2.
Mm-hmm.
This, to me, might be the best first-round matchup that we get because we have an interesting contrast of styles. The Rockets, they're a three-point shooting and around-the-rim team, but the Jazz may have the best rim protector in the league, Rudy Gobert. They can run him off the three-point line, get him to attack the rim, but Gobert attacks the rim, protects it a little bit. Maybe the Jazz can pull off a season upset here.
Yeah, no, this is going to be a really good one. They played each other in the second round last year, and it was after that first round upset with the Thunder and the Jazz. I guess not upset, but it was a close series. And I think Houston kind of lost a couple games there at the end, but I do think they're the second best team in the West, and I think they win this series. But it's going to be a tough 6 or 7 games, and I think you're going to see again Donovan Mitchell really. Show what he's made of and show his kind of star power in the NBA. And then you're right, the best rim protector in the league, one of the best defenses in the league. It's going to be tough to really go up against them, 5, 6, 7 games in a row.
I love Houston here. I'm going to take the Rockets. They're 20-4 in their last 24 games. But the Jazz and the Rockets actually have the best record since the All-Star break. But I love Houston here. Here's a bet for everyone. They are 12-1 championship odds. Maybe throw a couple bucks on that. They could beat the Warriors. If they're healthy, they can beat the Warriors. I don't see why they can't.
I like that. I like that call. And I was just about to say before you brought that up, I really like the positioning that Houston got. I think they're the second best team in the West, but a lot of people I've seen this talking point thrown around. I like the fact that they're going to play the Warriors, hopefully, if things work out, in the second round and not the conference finals. First off, you get, it's one less series that Curry has to rest. It's one less series that James Harden has to shoulder the load for. Maybe he's fresher in the second round than he is in the conference finals. And maybe Chris Paul hasn't had the Chris Paul playoff injury yet, right? So I really hope that that's the second round 1-4 matchup that we get. And I think that you're right. Like throwing a little bit of cheddar on the 12-1 odds is not a bad idea because Houston definitely can beat them. They almost did last year, probably should have. And, this year, some people think they're better, with the way Harden's playing. So
that'll move us to the next series, the 3 seed Portland Trail Blazers, 6 seed Oklahoma City Thunder. The Oklahoma City Thunder are the 6th seed, but they're actually favored in this series. They're minus 120 to win this series, and they're 4-0 against the Trailblazers during the regular season. Are we ripe for an upset here, Jacob?
I don't know. This one's a tough series to me because I'm really excited about the way the Blazers have been playing since Nurkic went down, because Damian Lillard has really kind of showed up and really been an All-NBA player, and even though McCollum's back, I don't know if he's going to be 100%. But I really think the Thunder can make some noise, but the part of me just thinks they're going to let us down like they did in the years past. Like you've brought up before, that Russell Westbrook has not had any success in the playoffs since Kevin Durant left. But he's got plenty of triple doubles, but not a lot of playoff success. So, if Paul George can play close to like he did at the first of the season, then I think they could definitely bring an upset. But I think Portland's going to want to prove to people that last year was an aberration, that they shouldn't have been swept. They were a better team than that, and that there's somebody that you need to worry about.
I think Portland has that little disrespect card going in because everyone's jumping on OKC. They're finally going to get it done. Woo! Right. We got the Trailblazers, and they're all beat up. But Portland's 14-3 to close the season out, and you never know which Russell Westbrook you're getting here. You just never know. But I do want to ask, if Russell Westbrook loses in the first round for the 3rd consecutive year, and this time it's against the Trailblazers, who are all beat up, and they got beat in the first round against the Pelicans last year, can people stop defending him? I can't do it anymore. They lose again. I don't want to hear it.
Yeah, it'd be tough to continue to kind of come to his defense like that. I mean, you can, in my opinion, you can admire the individual performance and his team still being in the playoffs every year, but also criticize the overall success of a season. And, this is a team that had made a finals, probably should have beat the Warriors that last season. Durant was there to go to another finals. And, they haven't been anywhere close to that level since Durant left, which is understandable, but still, Westbrook is an All-NBA player. He's made tons of All-Star games. He gets all this praise around the league. You've got to start bringing in the playoff results, especially with another All-Star like Paul George, or you're opening yourself up. And this could be a long 3 years for Paul George in that contract if they go out in the first round if they don't make much noise in the first round. So, all of a sudden you could get a lot of people pointing fingers at both of them, or maybe the fans start pointing fingers at Paul George instead of Russell Westbrook because he's their guy. So, it could get really sticky after this postseason if they don't really show up.
I'm going to take the Blazers. I trust Damian Lillard to perform more than I do Russell Westbrook. It's just how I feel about it.
I like the pick.
Last playoff first round series, Denver Nuggets, San Antonio Spurs. The Nuggets, the 2 seed, the Spurs, the 7 seed. These two teams split the season series 2-2. Who do you like in this one? Last one.
I like Denver. They've been kind of a mess the past couple of weeks, and they were losing some games on purpose and here and there, trying to get different seeds and different things. San Antonio is nothing to sneeze at. I do think they're better than they were last year coming into I think they were the same matchup with the Warriors 2-7 last year. They took a game from the Warriors. But this year they added, they didn't have Kawhi all last year. They added DeMar DeRozan. They've really slowed it down and not really been as much of an outside shooting team. They've played within the paint. They've got a lot of role players there. Obviously one of the best coached teams in the league. I think they're going to win a couple games. I think this is going to be a sneaky 6 or 7 game series, but I just don't think that they can hold up the whole time against the talent Denver has.
I mean, if you're really looking at this, the only thing the Spurs have is the playoff experience. Mm-hmm. I mean, what else do they really have? Denver is 34-7 at home this year. Denver has great depth. Denver has the better roster. Denver will have the best player on the floor. Denver has the better three-point shooting. What does San Antonio have besides Greg Popovich and the playoff experience? I mean, could it carry him? Sure. But I don't think San Antonio is even good. I really don't.
This is the one thing I'll say is that, and you bring up great points, right? Like, are we overvaluing a veteran roster? Are we because the Spurs have lost plenty of times in the first round. They've made no noise in the playoffs plenty of times, even as a higher seeded team. Saw somebody make that point today. I do think that what they do have is they have two players that have been in the playoffs specifically many times and with different franchises. Both have been looked at to make big shots, especially DeMar DeRozan. And I don't know who is going to do that for Denver. I'm not saying that people can't. There's not players that can. I think Jokic has superstar potential, or already, almost at that peak. I think Jamal Murray is a potential all-star. I really like Monty Morris. I'm not saying he's in that same level, but I really like some of their bench guys. Paul Millsap's had some experience there. But if these games, if they play around too much and they're too passive, I do think that you could see the Spurs steal a few games in the late few minutes because of their kind of poise, I guess would be a better way to put it, instead of just saying playoff experience.
I like
especially because their record at home. The Spurs have a really, really good record at home.
I like Denver here. If it was another team, I think Denver's ripe for an upset. Yeah. I just don't think San Antonio is good. I know they're well coached, but where's the talent? They're a mid-range jump shooting team.
Yeah, you're right. There's not a lot to love about them, but it's just one of those things where I think Aldridge and DeRozan are, they can fill it up, and if you're getting close to 30 points or more from each of those guys a night, then you only need a few other players to really step up and make some buckets against a team that is also filled with a lot of role players in Denver. So that's me almost more of, at this point, devil's advocate for San Antonio. I still think Denver's going to advance. Like you said, a different matchup, an OKC, LA Clippers, different scenario. I might pick them to get upset, but I do think it'll be a close series.
All right, and that'll do it for the first round series. Jacob, we have anything else to add here?
No, man, just more recap from the beginning. Just really really glad that the playoffs are here. Really glad that I really hope that, I'm not one of those big fix-it guys like, we got to, it's an epidemic here and there, like some people on Twitter are. But I do think that I hope that in this offseason, through the playoffs and through the offseason, that we come to some terms on some things to improve the consistent level of play over the course of the NBA season. The playoffs are going to be awesome, but the last couple of months of the season have really been a letdown for, just NBA fans in general, NBA junkies, because you got a lot of players sitting out. There's some problems that need to be addressed, and some, maybe those aren't easily fixable, but I hope we see a couple of changes, or at least some tone setting from, some commissioners and people in power.
Couldn't agree more with that. It's hard to get really excited when the players aren't excited. You know what I mean?
No, I agree.
If they're not taking it seriously, how are we supposed to take it seriously?
Yeah, and one more thing, I think, and I'm about to talk with a friend about this in the next week or so, kind of our Memphis Grizzlies specific year in review. But, I really think there's a lot of players out there, and I don't want to be that guy that's like not for player empowerment, but there's too much of like, I got to do what's best for me. I got to do, I got to look out for myself. In a lot of scenarios, I understand that. I do that in my own career, whether it's leaving a job before other people might think it's necessary, right? But at the same time, don't make the company that you're at, per se in my world, and the team that they're at in their world be the villain in this scenario necessarily. If a team has ponied up and given you max contract, multiple contracts and maxes on top of that, and really invested in it, and maybe they just made bad decisions, don't make those teams be the villains and start shutting teams down and really putting other players in bad positions because you just want to pout. So that's all I got to say. I don't want to get on a soapbox or anything.
Anthony Davis.
Exactly. Great player. Just do what you got to do, and things will work out, right? Like, you'll get moved or something will happen. Like, just come do your job, and things will work out.
As Anthony Davis had on his shirt. That's all, folks. That'll do it for our first round series previews here. Again, go to the website, vendettasportsmedia.com. Go to the YouTube page where the videos are happening. Vendetta Media on YouTube. Make sure to subscribe. Follow Jacob on Twitter, Jacob McCormick _, and give me a follow at Trey Dalbert. And thanks again, Jacob, for coming on.
Tell you something. You know what really grinds my gears? You, America. Fuck you, Diane.